Hello, gentlemen, and welcome to Marvel Monday.
Hey.
This is going to be epic. Let's see who we've got here. Mouse Ears and Magic is preloaded. Hello, James. Esther is watching. Bryan, who's here, is reminding you all, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Dwayne Willie is here. I know he's got some questions. Ethan is also saying hi to everybody who's still the Mark, Bryan, and Bryan. The multiverse of madness is upon us. We have two Marks and two Bryans, and I told Ethan he's sitting as Doctor Strange here today.
Right.
Let's do this like Jimmy Woo and his magic tricks. Jennifer is here. So Jennifer is here to get her questions answered as well. That's part of Marvel Monday. So welcome to Marvel Monday. I am your host, Mark with a C in this episode. Mark from This Diz Life podcast, and I would love to welcome this amazing panel today. And I have to start with my other counterpart, Mark from United We Fan, Mark Adams from United We Fan, the podcast. Mark, welcome to the panel. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you guys for letting me sit with you at the nerd table. I'm so happy.
They say the meek shall inherit the earth, sir. Here we are. Here we are. Where we are in all of our glory.
The Mark shall inherit the earth.
Yeah. Alicia says, hello, everybody. Chris is here, the reigning champion of adult game night. Courtney made it tonight. The one and only Piano Rob is here.
Rob. Yes, sir.
Lori is here. Let the party start. We're here to educate. And if we don't know the answers, we have an answer for you as well. I have too. Such a good time. Such a great. And Courtney just said it's such a great episode. We interrupt this broadcast. Episode 4, I think, guys, was the episode that so many people have been waiting for. And I just want to say this. I do my best to moderate, so this is going to be the only thing that I really say here tonight, and then I'm going to shut up. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hurt my feelings that so many people did not get into the style of the first 3 episodes. That I was a huge fan. We've all kind of talked about this separately, that we really like the stylized versions of the decades. We like the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. But for some people, it was just lost on them without the context. I was flooded with texts this last weekend to say that was the episode I finally needed to now get into it. I wish they had done that maybe after episode 1 or 2 instead of waiting 3 or 4 weeks before they did that. Bryan shaking his head no, and I happen to agree with you, Bryan with a Y. I happen to agree with you on that one.
It would have meant nothing. Like after what we saw at the end of episode 3, if we had seen it differently before, it would have meant nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree. So let's help the audience out too. Let's throw up some name tags for name tag. Hold on, let's put the name tag on. But with this show, so if you're watching us live, definitely drop a comment for us. Let us know a question or even just a something that you noticed, something that you really liked about the episode. Marvel Monday is all about the interaction. We wait until today that we don't talk about it online. We don't spoil it on the page on our socials. This is the day that we allow you to then take off the handcuffs. Free up, any spoilers. This is a spoiler. This is a spoiler zone. So that's the other thing. If you're checking us out on YouTube, if you're over on Facebook, and you do not want to hear spoilers for this week, and then we also at times we have people who will ask us to make predictions. We do that as well. So if that's not your speed, then Marvel Monday, maybe check us out at the end of the season, or just check us out. If you have a friend who says, hey, man, all clear, you can do it. Bryan is my co-host, and he wants to tell you something, too.
While we're on that, when we talk about speculation, we are going to speculate only on things from trailers that have been officially released by Marvel Studios. I'm going to ask the audience right now, there is some spoiler floating around the internet right now of a scene that was leaked that has a big, giant reveal in it. If you know it, please, please, please do not tell any of us here. I don't think any of the 5 of us know it. I haven't talked to my co-host Mark if he knows it, or he doesn't know it either. So please Be careful on what you're watching online, but if you know it, please, we are not going to discuss it here. We don't want to know it.
Yeah. The thing about this is we want to speculate, but even still, we try not to go, too far into it. We've purposefully held back on it. I just want to bring this up. Justin Grant says, I love the decades, but I have talked to people who've hated it. Yes, Justin, we have seen that as well. I want to talk really quickly about the panel as well. I am the moderator. I do this kind of thing, and I'll bring the comments up. And then I generally, once we get into the questions and the content of the episode, I just shut up and I try to just throw it to our three experts: Bryan from Mouse Ears and Magic, Bryan, who's my co-host from United We Fan. We have United We Fan in this episode too. Marc is joining us this week as a special guest, and then the Wolf and I always say this lovingly of the Wolf. Wolf is very much your average Marvel fan. He's just gotten into the MCU. So right. I love having him here because he is the best and most priceless reaction, that he is as pure as you get when he sees something happen in WandaVision or the MCU. He is your average fan and your average consumer. So that's what we love about this show is if you are the average consumer, we love you and we welcome you here. There's a big fight right now going on in the Star Wars fandom. There's always a fight going on in the Star Wars fandom.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's nothing new.
That like people are almost like asking for cred in the Star Wars fandom. That like if you just came on board, that the diehards are like calling you out on social media. There will be none of that here ever. So if you're just getting into this show, like welcome to the show. We love having you here. There's no question that is too easy, and there's no question that we won't try to tackle if it's something. These guys are big into graphic novels, so I'm very lucky to have the talent that we have here.
It sounds so much more adult when you say graphic novel instead of comic books. I love it so much. Thank you.
I would sling those graphic novels for a while. I was working in a comic shop. Samantha, who is a regular on a Marvel show of her own, is here, and she says it was epic. They do a Marvel Monday as well. They have a Marvel tribe of their own. Dwayne says the setup was well worth it. Matt is also here in the Northeast. He's shoveling his way out. Wanted to say what's up. He's completely mind blown after this episode. I want to tell you guys this, and I want to see your reaction. I wasn't mind blown as much as I had my mind put back together by this episode. It provided me with that nice perspective that I don't think that we saw. And to start this, I just want to throw this over to our resident newbie, Ethan.
Yep.
Ask him. So how did this episode sit with you? Was it better for you that you now got to peel back and see outside of Eastview, or did you not mind? What was your reaction on this one?
Immediate reaction was I was sort of happy to see sort of the outside looking in. I immediately, we all communicate outside of, and I had a ton of questions almost right away. I was like, wait a second, what's going on here? So it did sort of leave me with additional questions, I think is maybe the best way to put it. And I was left sort of feeling confused in the beginning because I was like, all right, wait, where exactly am I in the timeline here? And I think as a sort of a new watcher, someone who's really getting into this, I'm trying to put some pieces together from the various amounts of content that's out there. So, but no, it was an interesting perspective to sort of be brought back into like the first couple of episodes, but from almost behind the scenes in a sense. So that portion of it was really interesting, but no, they did a phenomenal job. The thing that I love about this television product that they're putting together is it's good enough for someone like me to take it for what it is, and yet also for you guys who are so in tune with everything that's going on, there's so much hidden that you get to talk about, which I'm sure makes it easy. So
Rob, you're and I listen, man, I can't say it better. I agree with you. That's what I love about it. I've said that to people. For the casual fan, there's a lot there. For the diehard, there's so much Easter eggs that it just like Mando, we've said this a million times. It's there for the casual Star Wars guy, and it's there for the diehards that grew up with it. Rob's giving you props. Thank you. He didn't know there was a spoiler. He's going to avoid that. Avoid it at all costs.
Yeah.
Avoid that at all costs. And hey, everybody, are we going to debate how you spell Mark and Mark? All marks are created equal. We're all amazing in the eyes of our maker.
That's right.
So I'm just gonna throw
We'll
that
go
out.
with that. Yeah. We'll go with that.
Same thing about Bryan personally.
We're not going to get into the Bryan thing. We have to have another Thunderdome to settle that debate. So Matt says he's mad. Dude, it's okay. He's multitasking. So we've now had two comments about the sword director. But so the first thing I want to get into this is I do want to talk about we don't do recaps here. We try to get right into the good stuff. I know a lot of people just saw this, so we don't personally do recaps. It's not our thing. So I don't want to recap it as much as I just want to get your reaction to the snapback.
Yeah. I
would love to get Ethan's perspective on this before you get anybody else's.
I can sort of provide a perspective here because I had to ask you guys, like, all right, where are we in the timeline? And again, and I also I had to ask you, and then I had to explain it to my wife because she was like, what is going on here? So it definitely, all of a sudden we're brought into, this opening scene where she's sort of coming back, and we know that as the snap. And I had to ask, okay, what snap was this? And we learned that it is the snap after the Hulk that was from Endgame. So we're sort of in that mist of things are kind of coming back. The hospital is going crazy. I'm going to provide this thought later too, but the one thing that really got me was Geraldine took a good shoulder hit from somebody, and I was like, dang girl, you're strong. You're real strong. And that to me was really, really interesting. And it provided some extra insights later on that we can get into. But yeah, definitely was not necessarily confused because I knew that there would be an aftermath to that snap. So it was interesting to sort of see that perspective.
Yeah, we kind of seen.
Go ahead, Bryan. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we kind of seen like an aftermath, but it was kind of played down almost comedically in Spider-Man. So I thought this was an interesting take on the snapback.
Well, tragedy plus time equals comedy. Like Spider-Man takes place 8 months after this. So, right. I mean, and the way high school kids are, especially, I mean, there's nothing funny. There's nothing not funny about a tuba guy getting hit in the head with a basketball. So, I mean,
right.
Been there.
Do we need to hear that story?
So, Mark, go ahead, Mark. What was your take on the snapback?
So my first thought when I rewatched it one of many times was I remember somebody posted it was a drawing of the snap, and it was one of those heartbreaking ones of like, oh man, I don't even want to describe it. It was a dad in a hospital after he just had a baby born, and like the panels went down with the snap. So when we were in the hospital, I was like, oh man, how dark are we going to get here? But Spider-Man, I think, was a great introduction to it. We can't go serious with this. Let's have some humor with it. So I'm glad we got the more serious take with this version. And we needed to have a serious take. We needed to see that people lost lives. People lost their husband and wife, and they probably remarried in that time. Like, lives were changed by the snap. And I think it's truly amazing. I mean, how long was that segment? 2 minutes, maybe?
Yeah, it was
2 minutes.
It wasn't long. It was like 2 minutes. Yep.
And it was. I will put it up there as one of the more powerful scenes in any Marvel storyline. It just seeing her come back there, have to find out that her mom, who she thought beat the cancer, oh no, she died. And she didn't get to say goodbye to her, and. She probably, we don't know it was 3 weeks, right? Before she went back to work? 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Right. So this is all taking place 3 weeks after Avengers Endgame, yeah.
So you don't know, what that did to her, having to lose her mom and trying to refigure out the world all by herself. Because it looked like her and her mom were still very strong and with each other. I definitely got kind of a glimpse of possibly what Agent Carter and her niece, what that relationship might have been like if they were maybe a little more closer in age, sort of, with S.H.I.E.L.D. So I kind of liked that tease a little bit. But side note, every time someone says snapback, I think of trucker hats. I know it's like a serious moment, but every time someone's like, what did you think of that snapback? Oh man, trucker hats are making a comeback. I don't know why.
It's the blip. It's the blip.
Okay.
So I mean, this is a top MCU scene. Like, this is incredible. And Ethan, I see what you're saying about her shouldering that guy. The way I read that scene is she was full bore to the nurse's station, and then he just appeared out of nowhere. Yeah. I don't think that means she's super in any manner at this point in time.
She got knocked down too, so
she did. And we'll talk far more about that later on. Regardless, I cannot believe Tiana Paris is incredible. Like, just they rip the Band-Aid off. They tell you immediately she's already been to space. She's already done all these things that she told Carol Danvers she was going to do one day. I really like that they cast somebody who looks a lot like the little girl actress from Captain Marvel. I mean, and a lot of that's simply in her hairdo, but still, like, she's super convincing. She's a powerful actress. That scene was incredible. The Russos said that it was a very peaceful coming back for people. That wasn't peaceful, but in a hospital, especially, like, you're on an OR bed and now all of a sudden somebody like appears on top of you, like, that's not going to be. But that scene, I didn't expect it. It shocked me, and it was the visuals of it, how the CGI worked. It looked incredible. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it grabs you right away. I mean, it was a jarring opening.
Yeah.
To something
you get the Captain Marvel dialogue in the background too.
Yep. To something that was not fleshed out, save for Spider-Man Far From Home, and it was done in a very comedic way. I understand why they did it comedically, because at that point, I mean, the first half of Endgame was so sad before everyone really comes back. Like, that was the loss. So I can get where they didn't want to really have that tone and that sentiment anymore in Spider-Man. They wanted to get over it somewhat. But this was, I think, a piece that, not just from a WandaVision standpoint, but a piece we needed to kind of see into that event, not surrounding the battle with Thanos, to go and see, well, this is how the blip affected everyone outside of, I can't call it snapback now, how the blip affected everyone outside of the battlefield.
Let me ask you this, because when I rewatched it, I thought about it. I'm like, you could have still had the episode without it. You could have just had her walking into it and had a one-liner.
Yep.
Just say, "Oh, welcome back. Oh, how is that snapback?" You know.
Yeah.
But instead, they put this scene there for a reason, and I'm so glad they did. I'm so glad they didn't just throw it away with one line. It was definitely a needed scene, and there's so many emotional scenes in the MCU, and I think not just for fanboys, I think for anyone, there are scenes that just pull at your heart. And like Bryan said, this is one of the most emotional scenes in the MCU.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was one of my favorites. Chris says, I'm glad nobody snaps back inside or on top of someone. If you're on a plane or boat when you got blipped, I hope you got blipped back onto land.
He's Professor Hulk for a reason. He was smart enough to do that. Now, you can see somebody coming on a hospital bed as it's going down the hall. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Everybody got everybody back. But the emotions that Monica felt, she wasn't getting people back. She was getting herself back. She didn't even know she was gone. Yeah. Like Spider-Man. Yeah. Hey, remember that time we were at that planet and I got all dusty? Like, Mark, you talked about people getting remarried and stuff. It reminded me of that professor in Far From Home where he goes, did I tell you guys about my wife? She pretended like she blipped and she ran off with another man. So that was good. But we go right from that and we go right to Sword.
All right, so Lori's got a sword question for you.
So Brian, the fact that sword has been established for the amount of time that it's been established is really surprising to me. I thought sword would have been established post snap and kind of everything there. It's been around for a while. We learned that Maria Rambeau founded sword, which is a big giant deal. Tyler Hayward is the acting director. Say what you want about that guy. His suit game is absolutely on point. Everything about that guy. He doesn't look like a guy that's going to be around for very long. He doesn't look like a guy that is really has good intentions. But Brian with an I don't think we gave you many times to talk snapback. But do you have anything about the snapback or the sword stuff?
No, y'all, we pretty much covered the snapback. I think my reaction to it at 3:00 in the morning was, "Dang, they brought that into there." I was really excited about that.
Yeah, Blur Hulk brings up a good point here. He says they're setting up her origins, which I love. I love, Dave.
Yeah,
I love David. I love that.
Absolutely.
David's team Spectrum. I think she's going to be Photon. Regardless, I think she's getting her powers. Absolutely.
Yeah, she is. For sure.
The point exactly you said before, the 5-year later thing didn't help everyone. They could have went back 5 years and no time would have been lost. They did it, frankly, because Iron Man refused to lose his family. That decision, as all Tony Stark decisions, are always a tad selfish.
Ooh, I really disagree with that, Rob. I really disagree with that. It's not just Tony, man. People had moved on with their lives. Like Tony, obviously, he's the one that said you bring everybody back to today, but you don't know the ripple effect that's going to have if you reset the timeline 5 years.
So let me ask this. Do we think Tony could have solved it sooner if he actually thought about it and wanted to? Because we all know he went there and somebody put the idea of the time heist in his head, and so then he kind of figured it out. But do we really think Tony needed that, or could he have done it on his own?
I think it's the knowledge that Scott Lang brought of the quantum realm and all the PIM tech that Scott Lang brought. The fact that Scott Lang was missing for those 5 years, he's the key to Tony Stark figuring that out.
I'm kind of trying to defend Tony a little bit to show that he's not as selfish. I mean,
I don't think so either.
So, yeah.
Well, Brian, we got to let Brian talk because we're being told Brian's never allowed to talk.
James is coming to his defense. He's right.
So, kind of a follow up, Matt. So we've had a question of what is Sword's role in all of this, but then are they quite similar to us? Brian, what do you think about this? We were talking about it before we really hit that live button. Brian with an I.
I don't really know a lot about Sword. Comic book wise, but I do know that Sword had kind of been created, as S.H.I.E.L.D. was kind of phased out because S.H.I.E.L.D. was compromised. S.H.I.E.L.D. had been compromised for a while. So Sword comes in as kind of like the new S.H.I.E.L.D. is what I understand about it. Now, all this stuff going on up until you get to from the blip or the snapback to where you see Sword. Sword is this huge place. I mean, how can you build something like that in 5 years? I think it's been built or going on for a long time.
Yeah, Matt's kind of giving you that vibe too. He just says, I like the way they portrayed Sword in that last episode. It seemed very similar to what S.H.I.E.L.D. had going on.
Well, the Sword headquarters look exactly like the Triskelion, like that we saw from S.H.I.E.L.D. in Winter Soldier. I mean, they've even got it down to the logo in the lobby. I mean, they got jerk security guards, which get over yourself, buddy, at the computer. Like, come on.
Real.
But Tyler Hayward, he could have given Monica her credentials back. Like the guy's dirty, man. Like he's got a hexagon of diplomas on his wall. That's all I'm going to say.
So I know that we didn't get this question, so let me throw it out there because again, this is what I love about this show is that it answers my questions as well. Did he not give her back the credentials? Because if he does, I had the feeling that she can then go into databases, do a lot of snooping about some stuff that's going on his end or just on the organizational end that may not be above board or like it again. I got that same vibe that you do, that this guy is not like there's something wrong with him. So I kind of looked at that, her not being credentialed again, not as this like random, well, you got blipped and you're grounded. I saw that as they're trying to keep her far away from something.
I have a theory about him. Are we at that point where we can
let's
decide?
do that now. Yeah.
So, and I am ready for everyone at home and including Bryan to poke holes in this. So it was the one line where he says something about like not everyone in the universe is a friend, or it's like people. It was something
Space
about
is full of threats. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm gonna say when he said that line, I was like, why would he say that line? And then I remember they announced the Secret Invasion series. I'm like, is he a Skrull? Could he possibly be a Skrull?
But even if he is, not all Skrulls are bad people. Like that's
I know. But what I'm saying is, at some point we're going to meet Skrulls that aren't good guys, that are not the friendly green ones that we've met. And I'm like, I don't know why, but I got a weird Skrull vibe about him. And I don't know. That's where I'm going with him, is Skrull.
I would say Skrull's more likely than Mephisto.
I don't hate it. Yeah, I don't hate that take, Mark.
I mean, if you just think about it, they're working on weapons. He said, like, they're working on more weapon than exploration.
Yeah, he said sentient weapons, like it says on the door, and her response is, yeah, but it doesn't say, it says observation and response. It doesn't say creation.
Right, and we already know she knows of Skrulls, so he has to be careful of that. So, and that could be a reason why he doesn't want to let her in too deep. So I was just kind of like, what's tied to her? She knows about the Skrulls, and I was trying to put some things together.
Well, we know Talos makes mistakes in Captain Marvel, so that's obviously
so he's a little mistake prone.
Again, what I really enjoy about this show is we have been speculating about Mephisto now for 3 weeks, and now episode 4 comes out. And I don't know, at least from my perspective, I think that at least this episode plants a little seed of doubt in my mind to say that definitively now we're going to get Mephisto. I don't know at this point. I don't know. I don't know. Or maybe they are going to set up Mephisto, but they're also just starting to peel back other components or other elements of Phase 4. And they're again, they're painting with a broad brush that it's not just one narrative that they're laying out with this, but multiple.
And I have a theory on that before we get out today. But no, it's something just setting up the future. But Ethan, how did you experience Tyler Hayward?
Yeah,
like I said, dude's suit game is fantastic.
I gotta be honest, I didn't necessarily like pull that amount of information from the exchange. I sort of took from it, hey, you're sort of going to be limited in what you're capable of doing right now. I didn't necessarily think of it from a standpoint of, that he was trying to hide something or trying to keep her from. I know that she sort of wanted to go back into things, but I didn't necessarily pull the same information that you guys pulled.
Well, he knows how to manipulate her too. He says it was your mother's protocol, and she can't argue with that. Like, is he even telling the truth at that point? Like, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting.
Stephanie, we'll get to Darcy.
It was an interesting exchange, but it wasn't one that I didn't necessarily pay like that close of attention to, because I just was like, all right, they're just trying to progress her story and get her on to the next thing.
Yeah. But with him, it's also super sketchy. He leaves when Darcy gets onto everything. He goes, "I need to get back to headquarters." Like, I don't trust the dude.
Yeah, interesting. I'll have to rewatch, because I think now that I know that, it'll be interesting to sort of pay a little bit closer attention to that.
On fleek.
So apparently that's something. That's something I say now. Apparently, no, we made it. So Mark, we made a joke. I had Alicia from Alicia's Closet on, and I asked her what the saying was because I didn't know. So she learned me on fleek. And then I quickly commented to say that a man of my age should never be using the term on fleek. And so that's turned into a running joke ever since.
Mark, I think you should just go big with it and just like say
Embrace
that
it.
suit was on fleek and then dab it right afterwards. Yeah.
Listen, there are some things that I say that I take ownership of that I purposely say for moments like that to get a rise out of them. I'm not going to get into it because it'll set this chat room on fire that I said during the Thunderdome, the melted ice cream Thor thing. But I stand by that one. I just need to flush it out and defend it a little bit more. I need to defend it a little bit more. So, Chris, I want to go back to this. He says it's very true. They possibly don't do Mephisto at all. I don't hate that, Chris. I don't hate it. What do you guys think of that? Do you feel like Mephisto is a given anymore, guys?
Oh, I don't think we learned diddly squat, to quote Jimmy Woo. Like
there's too many lead ups to Mephisto.
Yeah, we've learned nothing. We've learned nothing new as it relates to that stuff.
Yeah, I think it's too early to answer that question. There's still so many possibilities.
Yeah, I'm just flushing out the fleekness from this. There's a lot of fleek coming in.
Fleek Friday, right now. Good one, Rob.
Go big or go home. Go big or go home. Own it. Fleeky Friday. I like Friday. It.
I don't mean
hashtag it. Somebody hashtag it right now.
So
Ethan's got. Hang on, Ethan.
But my thought was, if Mephisto, who we've talked about on the show, I still don't really know a whole lot about. If he is going to be a part of this, in a standpoint where he's a tangible person and thing and he's seen, then I think it's going to play into this whole idea of whether or not Wanda is really the one sort of like puppeteering this whole thing, because I think this episode for me, sort of set the stage for her not necessarily being in complete control, but there's still, I don't know, there's a lot to unravel there, but I'll be interested to see whether or not he makes some type of appearance and how that plays into the rest.
Guys, I'm gonna jump a little bit in the timeline of the episode, but we've had so many questions that have come in that have been really and specifically tailored to the amount of control that Wanda has over all of this. Yeah. The changing of the decades, the power over people, places, time, things, the fact that after she throws Geraldine out of the town that she realizes, oops, my bad, fixes everything, cleans up the room, kind of, everything's fine, darling. But we've had a lot of questions about, and at the end of the episode, the last thing that we get is Monica says, it's all Wanda. I disagree with that. Yeah. And Brian's shaking his head. I don't think so. So I think that there's a lot of forces at work here, but I want to pull because it's all sort of in a very common thread that this is all Wanda. This is all and this is all a reaction to Wanda's grief. I think her grief plays into this, but I don't think that is the end all be all of what we see happening in here. I think she's truly being manipulated. So I just want to round table that and go around the horn with Wanda, the Vision, all of it. Let's just start to get to, because this is the meat and potatoes of what people have been asking us as a panel this week.
Right.
So Mark, go ahead. Let's start with you. You're our guest. Go ahead.
I feel bad. Brian with an I, do you want to go? I feel like
No. I want you two to go. Okay. You and Ethan.
Ethan going person on the planet, man. Don't worry.
I think her grief, I think her loss made her very easy to take advantage of by whomever is in charge of it. I do not in any way think she's the main villain, and I'm kind of worried that we won't find out the final answer until Doctor Strange. I hope we don't have to wait that long to get the full answer, but you just catch little looks from her where she starts to kind of wake up from whatever dream or fog or haze this is, and then just whatever's controlling her just gets back hold of her. But oh man, that look at the end there where she tells Vision she has everything under control.
Yeah, like that's a completely different sentence if she doesn't use the word darling. Like it's frightening how when she says darling, it changes the whole thing.
Yeah. So I think her grief made her susceptible, but I think she's just a puppet. A very powerful puppet.
I think that's 50-50, Mark. I think that her grief is making her susceptible to suggestion from outside parties here.
Yeah.
But I also think on some level she's a willing participant in all this. And I think you see that from episode to episode.
I don't know about that.
Go ahead, Bryan.
She might be mentally unstable, obviously. I think she's slowly losing her mind. And you know, part of that is because she's lost and all that stuff. But you see that through from where she's introduced all the way up to now, that she has these mental breakdowns, and she's still experiencing them because she's had loss after loss. So she's definitely being taken advantage of, whether that's Mephisto or Agatha Harkness or whoever it is.
Or Agatha Harkness is Mephisto in the MCU. Like, maybe.
Chris says they could still make this a compelling story with Wanda controlling everything and no Mephisto. Monica saying that it's all Wanda, though, seems like a purposeful misdirect. That's where I got that feeling that at the end of it, I was left with the idea that they want us to purposefully think it's Wanda. I don't feel it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'll accept it. But I just don't get the feeling that Wanda is solely in charge of what's going on. I think she's being manipulated by one, if not more people in that scenario.
If it's all Wanda, she doesn't have a problem getting rid of that stork. You could say she's losing control, sure, but she doesn't have an issue getting rid of that stork if she's in control.
Exactly.
If she's in control, she's not gonna allow Vision to have his own awareness of what's happening. Like, and Vision's clearly very uneasy with what's happening here. Like, it's a deal with the devil, man. Like,
so why does she keep changing this?
Go back to...
Go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna say, do you think this goes back to Endgame, where the universe sees her take out Thanos, and they kind of recognize her as someone recognizes how powerful she can be? Do you think this has something to do with how powerful she could be? Like,
do you picture that battle being televised on CNN?
Yeah, Wolf Blitzer was there. He got snapped back.
This isn't Mission Impossible, man.
He had the flak jacket on, or Anderson Cooper was there with the tight black T-shirt.
No, you're onto something, Mark. Like, we're tapping her abilities here. Like, strongest female Avenger. Like, by the end of this series, we're there, man. Like, Omega level powers.
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna get burned for this, but I think if Wanda and Carol Danvers had to have a fight, I think Wanda could take her.
I don't think we're there yet, but I think we're gonna be there soon.
Yeah.
But she's clearly going to be a villain.
Yeah. So Dwayne wants to know, and again, this kind of all plays into the same thing. Why does Wanda keep changing that sitcom genre? Do we know?
So I have a theory.
Yes, I love it. Yeah. I love it.
Yes.
You're ruining the gag.
All right.
Go ahead.
So my thought is from the get-go, you know, we saw this picturesque, perfect life that she's, you know, seen in television. And as things start happening that aren't perfect, she edits them. So I think that she's putting us into these genres because each time something gets sort of not picturesque and perfect, she's got to change things up a little bit because it's easier in many situations to just go on from a problem than to actually fix it. So I think that she's editing and she's making changes on the fly because it's interjecting into what is her perfect scenario. I mean, anytime something that's kind of odd happens, whether it's, you know, seeing Vision in his true state or, you know, seeing Geraldine and all of those things being brought up, Like she's got to change it and edit it in a sense, and then pull it all back together so that way it's perfect for her. And I do think that a portion of that comes from just being sad, being upset, and not understanding how to really understand her powers and understand how to handle that amount of grief that I think that she's dealing with. That's just a guess. And it's not even really a guess. It's just a thought.
No, I mean, it's Mr. Hart chokes, the beekeeper comes, and now like Geraldine, like, no, that's, you run away from your problems. That's
Thank you.
what she's doing. That's what she's doing with this entire thing.
I wanted to know what happened
Mr.
to the
Beekeeper.
hazmat suit guy too.
So speaking of the beekeeper, James says, whatever happened to the agent that went in the hazmat suit? We see him in episode 4. She's going back. She says no. She rewinds and takes time back a piece, but we don't. That's another fascinating piece. Is there's a few occasions where things will happen and they hit rewind. What happens in the real world? What are the ramifications of that?
They gave us indications that the broadcast just cuts, but the broadcast probably doesn't see that. But we don't know what happens. We know what happens to Geraldine, and we know what happens to Dottie, like all that kind of stuff. But we don't know what happened to the beekeeper. Yeah, we don't know. And my guess is the fact that they gave us what the beekeeper was, that we'll see him again.
Yeah,
but it's like
I think he gets put back in the fold.
That's what I think is really interesting. It's like she's editing it.
Yeah.
What's weird is when she says no, we see it from that angle. It's a completely different no than what we actually got in the show. I think that just may be an editing thing. That just may be a choice in the editing room, or it means something because tinfoil hat, man. Everything in this show means something. So
yeah, it does.
So
we're getting there, Matt. Yeah,
Matt was yelling at us. He said he feels like Detective Wu deserves a little bit of love, and I'm very sorry. Like I feel really bad, Matt. So as a little thank you to you,
James E. Wu, FBI.
There you go. Close up magic. Scott Lang. It pays off. The greatest.
Best scene ever.
It's the greatest. It's the greatest. Like, if we want to read into that scene, it tells us that Jimmy Woo wasn't blipped. He had 5 years to work on that. Like, Jimmy Woo has experienced this entire blip, like all that kind of stuff. But they knew what I wanted from him, and they gave it to me in 2 seconds, and it was amazing.
There it is.
Like he was sitting at his desk, just like practicing.
Exactly. He even gets interrupted. He's like, "Would you knock next time?" Yeah. Oh, it's the greatest.
The two character additions for me that were there were Darcy and Agent Wu. They made this episode for me. I was a huge fan of them. Bryan, hats off to you for calling that. In week 1, you said it's Jimmy Woo on the radio, and you, like, it was the first episode without fail. You said it's Darcy sitting there watching as the first episode, as the television turns off. You called it like dead on. So
Blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then, gentlemen.
Props to you. Props to you. Amazing. Rob says they used the word charm or charmed a few times. I believe that's on purpose. The definition of charm is happy or lucky, as though protected by magic. And that's throughout the series, he says.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I feel like to get a little bit again into some stuff that we've seen, a few questions about the policeman that just again seemed a little hanky.
Yeah.
That here are 2 policemen outside of the illusion, and yet they seem to be still under some kind of spell or charm that they're still going with it. Bryan with an eye. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I think these guys are I think whatever's happening in this town, they are directly affected. The people that know the people that live in this town are directly affected by this. Whether it's amnesia or whatever it is that they have. The cops, the people who knew the guy, I'm not going to say his name or say who he is right now, but they don't even know who this guy is anymore. And we don't even know where they live at this point. The witness protection guy. So I think that anybody that knows all these people are directly affected by this.
Bryan, that was an element of the show that was completely lost and swept under the rug. That the reason that they're there in the first place is there is a missing persons case. When is there a missing persons case that warrants a sword agent to go and help? Like, isn't that overkill? Like, that was a little bit of a red flag for me. That usually you get a missing persons case or someone's in witness protection. You don't bring a sword agent to go and
they wanted the drone, man. Jimmy Woo knew not to go in there. They made it clear that drone, by the way, it had the 57. It was in Captain Marvel colors. It was the same drone that we had already seen. Now, why isn't that edited out of the broadcast? But I want to speculate. Can I speculate, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, missing persons. Yes, I've heard that. You're the second person to tell me that, Stephanie. And Stephanie Wyatt, give me some clarification on what you were asking about Darcy, the 5 years, because I'm Team Darcy. We need to poke holes in whatever we need to. Anything going against her. Okay, so the missing persons. If the missing person case was only to get us to Westview, they would have quickly been, oh, there's my missing person. It's John Collins who plays Herb. Like, they would have already closed the loop on that. That missing person is a big, giant deal. The FBI, 3 weeks after the blip ends, the FBI's got to be a little bit busy. So a missing persons case doesn't get to the FBI within 3 weeks unless it's an important missing person.
There you go. That's it.
Who is that missing person? Mark, if you could pull up my first image, please.
Okay, hold on. Give me 1 second.
This image is taken directly from a featurette that was given in week 1 of WandaVision. That is Jack Schaefer. She is the head writer and executive producer of this show. I apologize for it being so blurry. But if you pay attention to the left side of the screen, there is a black man with a man in a black suit with a red W on it. Around the corner, it looks a lot like Vision in his form. Marvel knows what they're doing. This concept art of Simon Williams / Wonder Man does not show up in a featurette on this show unless they're leaving breadcrumbs for us to figure it out. Wonder Man is Simon Williams, who is a very popular Hollywood actor within this world. Popular enough that I believe if he were to go missing, that the FBI would get involved early on. Why is Simon Williams important? He shares the same brain activity as Vision. Vision's brain activity is patterned after Simon. Now, this is all in the comic books. This is nothing MCU confirmed. But Vision's brain activity is patterned after Simon Williams, which is what gives him the ability to even love Wanda in the first place. Simon Williams has a brother named Eric Williams. Mark, if you could give me my second image, please. Eric Williams is, you see that black helmet right there in the middle, 2 bones as well. Eric Williams is the Grim Reaper. Mark, next image, please. There is that same helmet. The Grim Reaper is Eric Williams. The Grim Reaper is who I think is featured prominently on Agnes's brooch, her pendant. And I believe, and if you see that hook on his hand, I hope that he is played. I don't even know the actor's name, but I hope the Grim Reaper is played by the guy that played Captain Hook on Once Upon a Time. That's a handsome devil. But Paul Bettany has said he shared meaningful scenes with somebody he's wanted to work with for a long time. Gentlemen, I think we are getting a big-time superhero in Wonder Man, and it's going to be played by somebody we have no idea who it's going to be. I think that's our missing person. Now, this is like betting Tiger Woods versus the field. The likelihood of me being correct is about 10%, but it's as likely as anything.
Huh. I
It's
agree.
well researched.
I don't hate it. Just let me say it.
You love it.
I love it. I love it.
You don't find Wonder Man in promotional footage unless they want us to follow the breadcrumbs.
Listen, I love that, man. Nice dig on that. That was awesome.
Bryan, could it be a misdirect?
But they have no reason to misdirect us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
I
have
think
no
the
reason to
misdirection
misdirect us.
was Monica.
Yeah, it's not Monica. Like it's not all Wanda. Like it's not. Like the broadcast is being censored. Man, we're 52 minutes in. Folks, we're gonna go past the hour. If you want us to stop, then tell us in the comments. But like we haven't even talked about Darcy yet. But the broadcast is being censored, and it's being censored at the times. One, why would Wanda broadcast it in the first place if she doesn't want people to come find her? Like, she made a deal with the devil, and there's unintended consequences here. But the broadcast is being censored at the times when Wanda is most distracted by Wu on the radio, and Dottie gets her hand cut, by somebody coming out of the sewer, by going at Geraldine. Like, that's the last thing on Wanda's mind, is to censor a broadcast. And we know that the broadcast is simultaneous with real life because they watch it, and then he goes, well, where'd Geraldine go? Like, where'd Monica go? And then she comes flying out of the bubble. Like, somebody's censoring this broadcast, and it's not Wanda.
Yeah. Matt just asked really quick. It's like he says it's an out there comment, but could the Beekeeper have been someone that we all really know very well, like a Doctor Strange, someone completely out of left field? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
We saw his face in the hazmat suit.
Yeah, I don't think so. Samantha says that Darcy is the new love of her life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan.
She's witty.
Yeah.
Coffee.
Nobody cares.
Wanda was flipped away. So this is all happening 3 weeks from Monica snapping back.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. She's still hurting. She's still hurting. She has not processed this loss yet.
Well, and like I said a couple weeks ago, like this is a real life thing. Like, depression's a real life thing that people deal with. Mm-hmm. At the end of Avengers Endgame, you see her looking over the lake with Clint Barton, and she's trying to cope with what's happening, and she feels good that day. But if she gets approached by somebody who says, "Hey, I can bring him back. Like, you can have everything you ever dreamed of. Like, you couldn't have kids before. You can have kids now." Like, yeah, she's emotional, man. She's gonna fall into that with unintended consequences, and she knows it's fake. Obviously, she knows it's fake.
So, Bryan, here's your more context from Stephanie.
Okay.
What's Darcy's motivation to pursue higher education in astrophysics? How'd she so quickly become the go-to expert after we were kind of trained to see her as the slacker? # Team Darcy.
So in Thor 2011, we see her. She says, "I'm not going to die for 12 college credits." She's in astrophysics already. Like, she's already studying astrophysics. She's an intern for Jane Foster. Like, all that happens. Then we see her again in Thor: The Dark World in 2013. She asks Thor, "How's space?" which is a great line. But she's still continuing that within astrophysics. And then the snap happens in 2018. And Rocket in Endgame says it's an event of cosmic proportions like we've never seen. And then we saw it twice in 2 days. Like, the astrophysics that come out of that's going to be a pretty popular field, especially in something like Sword. So it seems like she's a contractor for Sword and doesn't work for them yet. I hope she gets hired by Sword as well as Jimmy Woo, and they work together. And and Darcy clearly didn't get blipped to become Dr. Darcy Lewis. Like, I think if you're Team Darcy, I think you just don't want to shortchange her from what she was in Thor and Thor: The Dark World. I think she's a very important character even in those films. But we all know that we're all looking forward to that commemorative T-shirt.
Really looking forward to the commemorative T-shirt. Is there somewhere a lady could get a cup of coffee? You guys look like you might get down with those little pod things. Horrendous for the environment.
Make your assessment, please.
She's the best. She's the best.
I just love that. It's like the best. I love. You guys look like you get down with them little pot things. Horrendous for the environment.
She's the best.
I'm gonna go next time I go somewhere and they're serving me out of a Keurig. I'm gonna use. I swear that's like my new go-to line right there.
I mean, I love the part later too when she goes. I mean, first the 60s, 50s, now the 60s, now the 70s. This can't purely be for my enjoyment. Like, I love that they're bored and Darcy's invested. Like, their board is a glimpse into our group text messages. Like, this show is very self-aware and they know exactly. And if you weren't asking these questions, you're asking them now.
Yeah.
Like why the hexagons, like all that. It's stuff we've been talking about since episode 1, but it's a big deal.
Yep.
All right, so a few of the tail end questions that we got, again, a lot of it just centers around Wanda and Wanda's control. But the big one that we kept coming back to, why is Wanda constantly hiding what is happening with Geraldine from Vision? Why not just what's happening with Geraldine? Why is she hiding almost everything with Vision? People asked, is Vision dead? Is she controlling Vision? Because if Vision's not dead, why would she be hiding this stuff? So what is happening here?
Dude's dead, man. Did you see that freaking scene?
So. Yeah, I think so too. I agree. I think he's dead.
I'm gonna shut up. I've been talking way too much. I'm sorry.
My daughter goes, oh. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yep.
It actually freaked her out a little bit. That scene freaked her out. So I think he's dead. He's dead.
But why is she hiding everything from him?
I think that man, that's a good question. Because
can I take this one? I would really like to take this one. So speaking of classic cinema and just like influences coming from like the 50s and 60s, this to me smacked of Psycho. Yep. This smacked of Norman from Psycho. That mother is dead. He knows that she's dead, and yet,
spoiler alert.
Yeah, he knows that she's dead throughout the course of it, and yet, all of his behaviors are constantly and like him trying to sort of justify everything that he's doing to a dead woman who would not voice her disapproval at all, and yet he still is doing those things to try to seek the approval of a corpse for the duration of the film, and then the end of it, it realizes that. You realize it's dead. They're not going to wait until the end to let you know that Vision's dead. But to me, that's what that was. She knows Vision well enough. We've seen his ethos. We've seen him talk about right and wrong, and it's not a mistake that in the lead up to the release of this, they put out again that discussion between Ultron and Vision. To have that discussion between the two of them and the perspective of humanity and right and wrong. And we've gotten to hear from Vision multiple times about his thoughts on power. And I think that she knows that he would disapprove of what she's doing right now.
Yeah, 100%.
She knows that he's dead, but in her mind, she's living out this fantasy. And so she still aims to please him despite the fact that it's Psycho. It's Norman from Psycho.
It's another personality. It's one of her personalities. Right now, that's what I'm going with. I think that's exactly what it is. That she's living through him, or she's making him alive through her. I don't know how you put it, but I mean, I think it's a different side of her personality.
Yeah. So Rob says she may be hiding it from herself. He's not really there. 100%.
I disagree with that because she knows her reality. We saw Dead Vision. She saw Dead Vision. Like she knows what she's looking at. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah.
I was going to say, do we remember in Infinity War when Shuri was trying to work on Vision before they had to go down to the battlefield? Do we think she might have saved any part of Vision, like on a zip drive or anything?
She saved her work. She turned like they come into the lab. She turns around, does a few things, saves her work.
I feel like she's even swiped to save at some point. So I'm like,
Wakanda's on autosave at this point, but yeah.
I think Wakanda's also running off of a Roadcaster, James.
Although, should we get Mark's opinion on the Wakandan fashion? Is it on fleek for him or no?
Totally on fleek.
Oh, yeah.
100% on fleek.
What are those?
When you take on all that kinetic energy and you just like have that is the very definition of on fleek at that.
So I'm just wondering if Shuri might have saved anything, and I'm just wondering if someone might have saved or copy and pasted from what was saved from that, and it's being used in some way to get something from Wanda right now, and that's why she's being manipulated.
So I have one word for you guys, and Darcy said it. Barf. Is anybody remember?
No.
Come on, man.
No.
All right. So hash this out, but tell us what you're talking about too, so the people that know what we're.
That's where you brought up. Okay.
Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Primarily augmented retro framing.
Yeah.
It was used in Spider-Man: Far From Home. It's the entire thing. I just think it's Darcy disapproving of old ways and women always doing the dishes and stuff like that. This is not barf. This is not barf technology. This is real. And what tells us it's real is that Herb is John Collins, that Mr. and Mrs. Davis are Mr. and Mrs. Hart. Like, this is real. This is real stuff, man. Like, real. I think the reason she sees Dead Vision is because she hears the word Ultron, she gets taken out of it, so she doesn't see Vision in the manner. Now, the question is she literally puppeting around Dead Vision as Weekend at Bernie's style, or is it just she got reminded of him in that moment? I hope that's what it is. I hope we don't have Gray Vision like coming. And side note, with my Simon Williams like theory, Simon Williams was part of the West Coast Avengers. White Vision was in the West Coast Avengers. White Vision he's a robot, man. He does not love Wanda. Like, if we get Vision after this and he tells Wanda he doesn't love her, like, this is going to be bad. Like, it could go real, real bad.
Mm-hmm. Brian, that was also a really good Jake Gyllenhaal impression of when Brian said barf. And then that was why your reactions was perfect, Jake Gyllenhaal, to barf.
All right, guys, let's do our best 10,000 maniacs and give them what they want. They want more Dottie. Let's get thoughts on Dottie. They're begging us.
She's not on the board. I mean, we know she's not on the board. Yeah. Agnes is on the board, but she wasn't identified. Yeah. Like, that's a big deal. And we know Agnes from trailers. Like, she says, let's take it from the top. She knows she's in a show. She's riling up the townsfolk, like as witches would do. So I think we've ruled out that the whole town is a coven of witches, but Dottie could still be a witch quite easily, giving her blessing by giving that trophy at the end of the second episode. Agnes is almost certainly Agatha Harkness. Like, there's just no way. Now, who is Ralph? Who is Dottie? Dottie very well could be Clea, who is central in Doctor Strange's thing. She's insane. Like, she's ruled the dark dimension with Dormammu. Like, we're not headed that way with Clea if she is Clea. But she's not on the board for a reason. And it's not that they didn't see her, because they identified Beverly. And the first time we see Bev is the first time we see Dottie. So they didn't identify Dottie for a reason. We do know the missing person, whether it's Simon Williams or not. We do know the missing person is a him. So I don't think the missing person is Dottie. If I had to put money on it, I'd put $5 in GameStop stock on Clea. But that's about as far as I would go.
Yeah. So we've already speculated. A lot of us think that Vision is gone. We got a Weekend at Bernie's scenario going on here. Are the kids real?
Yes.
We got a lot of that as well.
Brian,
go ahead. Brian,
they are real. They are real. They're real in the comic books. They're about to be real on the MCU. Well, and they're going to carry on all the way through, unless the Mephisto thing materializes. So we may actually see.
Well, what I think is interesting, and I have been, like, my mind is blowing over here, but what I think is interesting is the idea that she's making this deal with the devil, and, you know, being allowed to see Vision, being allowed to have this perfect life, being allowed to have kids, all things that, you know, she wasn't capable of, and now she is. So I think that, you know, if there's this big contract written out and she signs it, kind of like
Ursula,
Ariel with Ursula, just like, yeah, sure, whatever. You know, there's gotta be something going else on here that, you know, and I think, you know, in previous episodes we've talked about, you know, Mephisto wants these kids, so there's got to be some devil in the details.
Yeah, that was not a throwaway line. I agree. Yeah.
that there's something that, you know, my mind right now is like kind of exploding because I'm like, whoa, this puts into a whole new and whole different perspective as to sort of what is going on here. If there's this now, and here's the thing, like as sort of the casual fan, I still have no idea who, like the Devil and the Mephisto, like I don't know who any of those people are, but I do know, you know, the Devil went down to Georgia. I know what the Devil is capable of in terms of making a deal. There's always something within the contract that says, nah, there's something else that you need to be reading here that you probably glanced over and didn't notice. So
Stephanie, I see this one. I'm going to get back to it. I will get back to it because I really like that question.
Mark, do you have anything on the twins?
Side note, Mark, bravo to you for labeling Bryan as Bryan with an I. I just noticed that.
That was that was these guys. They did.
I did that.
I'm not that smart.
Thank you for not labeling as Mark with a K. So as for the twins, it all happened rather quickly. So I don't feel like it's real, but man, that's going to be real dark if there's a storyline where they get her hopes up that they are real and psych, Frank, no. So I like don't want to say Marvel's going to go that dark to take away Wanda's children from her, but I have a feeling the children we saw being born and like that was they aren't real. I don't feel it.
I love my co-host dearly. I could not disagree more personally, and it's nothing personal, Mark.
It's always personal with you.
We know that the Young Avengers are coming.
Yes.
Tommy is Speed, Billy is Wiccan. All that's coming, but there's two things that we have seen that tell us everything in this reality survives outside of the bubble. Monica comes out and she's still dressed in her 70s everything, even though she went in differently. And two, and this is the big one that not a lot of people caught, is that tether turned into a jump rope. And they pulled that back up out of that sewer, and it's still a jump rope.
Nice.
But
So that anything that goes into that reality comes out. Go ahead.
But you need the children to still come out of this channel. So
you do. Yeah, you do.
So by your logic, yes, they're real as long as we can find a way to get them out of the bubble.
If Wanda throws them out, that's what you're saying? Yeah. No, and Sword's going into the bubble, man. Like, I don't believe this is a full House of M retelling, but Wanda's getting those kids taken away from her, at least for an episode.
Oh, gosh. Oh, look out.
Before we get into that one question about where we go from here, a lot of people wanted then to know, because they're on the board, some of them, and there's not a lot of knowledge about them. What are the real identities of Agnes, of Dottie, of Ralph? Does anybody want it?
Do it, Bryan.
Does Darcy got me covered here?
She does.
I don't know, and I don't know.
The answer is Agatha Harkness. I don't know. I mean, Agatha Harkness, if I had to put money down, Agatha Harkness, Clea, Mephisto.
But again,
I'm not confident in two of those three.
But we're speculating. So in essence,
I don't know, and I don't know.
But what do you know?
All day. I could do. That's another one. I could do that one all day, all day long, guys. We always like to end with this one. It's always one of our favorites to end, and I really loved the way that Stephanie put this. Is where do you guys foresee next week taking us back? Are we going back into the sitcom, or are now we on a joint sitcom real world form from here on out?
I'll go last.
I think it's going to go back to the sitcom. I think it's going to toggle between the two. So
in the same episode?
I do. I feel like it will.
I sort of think that we're going to see two episodes again that are in the sitcom, and then I think you've got to go back to the real world and get that perspective and figure out what everyone else is seeing. And in reality, I'm waiting for the costume that's on Bryan's shirt. So that's an awesome shirt.
That green costume is pretty sexy.
It's next week, buddy. Get ready.
I don't think it's next week. I don't think it's next week.
I think Halloween is next week. I do. I think it's happening.
I thought that'd be like 2 more episodes away or something.
I think it's a 2000s Modern Family more than anything. But yeah, I mean,
did you see the houses?
I'm ready
in the trailer.
Yeah, I think we're gonna. I think it's gonna upset the fanboys who are just like, "Yay, the show's finally picking up. We're getting modern day action." Ha ha ha. But I'm glad they're gonna go back to the format that is what made the show special with the sitcom, the dated sitcom, and we're at the 80s still, right? We have to get the 80s.
Yeah,
80s is next.
Yeah, 80s would be next.
I am ready to go for the 80s. I think they need to go to it. It's what makes the show unique. And then I hope that the fans will now trust the show after that amazing 4th episode, that Marvel knows what they're doing. They're going to give the fans what they want. They're going to do it in a logical, intelligent way. So, yep, we're going back to the 80s. And I think we'll maybe get 1 or 2 little teases of the modern world, but I think it's going to be an 80s show.
I think the more S.W.O.R.D. tries to involve themselves, the more breaks in reality we're going to have. Yep. I think there's a reason that S.W.O.R.D. has been introduced now rather than just to keep people paying attention and provide answers. Because I got proven right about Darcy watching and Jimmy Woo was on the radio. But that's about it. Like, I thought the helicopter was a real helicopter until it wasn't. So I left that episode with more questions than I actually got answered. But I don't think you introduce S.W.O.R.D. and then you don't. Jimmy Woo, he's just so wonderful. You can't stay away from him for long. I think we're going to have a lot more breaks in reality as S.W.O.R.D. is trying to get in. And I think you're going to have a better understanding of exactly what's happening, especially because they talk about the drone reverting back to an old style to fit within the production. And Darcy says to render it useless. The closer we get to that production value being modern day, the more breaks in reality are going to be harder to decipher.
That's a good point. I like that.
I think that's going to be a big deal. I think by the end of this series, can I share something that was not my idea, but I am very much team of, is we talked a lot in this episode that not in the hour and 15 minutes we've spent discussing this 28-minute episode, but CMBR, cosmic microwave background radiation. It's been around since the Big Bang. It's what created the elemental
Infinity
Stones, which the Mind Stone unlocked Wanda's powers. We saw it in the 3rd commercial, in the 3rd episode of Unlock the Goddess Within. I think the Mind Stone unlocked her mutant powers. Darcy has already foreshadowed that the radiation is within safe levels for now. Yeah. That radiation is going to expand. There is no Terrigen bomb set up in the MCU. That radiation is going to unlock mutant powers or something like that across at least the eastern seaboard. You know who else lives in New Jersey? Her name is Kamala Khan, and Miss Marvel is coming at the end of this one. I think the radiation that Monica just experienced has unlocked Photon or Spectrum or whoever she is. Mm-hmm. I think we very well could see a post-credit scene of Monica swinging by and seeing Kamala Khan in some form or fashion to try and mentor her. I could be wrong, but this radiation, the line for now is a big deal, and that radiation is what unlocked Wanda's powers in the first place. I'm still 100% convinced that I said in the first episode that we are headed to a point where Wanda is maybe not the main, but she is a villain in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
I agree. Well, gentlemen, listen, we set records here tonight on this Diz Life podcast, not just for live stream, but like every episode that the people asked us for a little extra time. They hung in there with us as well. I want to thank again my panel. Thank you to Mark from United We Fan. Thank you to my co-pilot also from United We Fan, Bryan. every single week. Ethan, like, isn't this great? We just get our minds blown.
I just sit back and like let my mind explode.
Right?
A lot of fun.
And Bryan from Mouse Ears, like the three of these guys are just they're on point. Because again, if you ask me my opinion with almost 95% of these, I'm just gonna tell you.
I don't know, and I don't know.
Gentlemen, Excelsior! I will see you all next week. We only have a few more days to wait. And as always, we say when we end, for the children.
The children.
For the children.
Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful week.